In a forgotten corner of the country, nestled between green hills and dusty roads, lay a village so poor that dreams often died before they could even be named. Its people lived off the land, prayed for rain when drought came, and prayed it would stop when floods threatened their cracked homes. Among them was a boy named Arjun Barefoot, sun-kissed, and tougher than most boys his age. He was 17, with eyes that held too much wisdom for someone so young. Arjun lived with his aging mother in a one-room mud house on the village's edge, his father having died in a failed city migration attempt 5 years earlier. Despite his poverty, Arjun had something rearrant unshakable spirit. Every morning he would rise before dawn, help the local farmers fetch water for the elderly, and tend to his 2 goats, the only assets he owned. People often said, this boy was born with hands meant to heal, not harm. That monsoon the skies had been cruel. For days, dark clouds had loomed, and the river that wrapped around the village like a sleeping serpent had started to stir, its belly full and angry. The elders warned of a flood, but warnings were useless in a place where people had nowhere to run. That fateful evening, as the wind howled like a grieving mother and the first wave broke the riverbank, panic exploded. Screams, wailing. The rush of Fidajun was helping his neighbors evacuate when he saw something strange. A black luxury SUV stranded on the submerged bridge. No vehicle like that had ever entered their village before. Inside, a woman struggled. To open the door, water rising fast. Arjun didn't hesitate. He plunged into the current, fighting its pull, cutting his feet on hidden rocks. Reaching the SUV, he shattered the window with a stone and pulled her out, just as the vehicle was swept away like a leaf in a storm. The woman was unconscious, bleeding from her forehead. Arjun carried her for miles through rain and mud to a hilltop where villagers had gathered. She was dressed in clothes that didn't belong here, real silk, a diamond bracelet, shoes worth more than Arjun had ever seen. But in that moment, she was just another life worth saving. For 3 days, she remained unconscious, and Arjun cared for her like she was his own kin. He gave her his blanket, fed her rice from the last sack his mother had, and shielded her from the storm. When she finally opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was Arjun's face dirt-streaked, his hands blistered, his eyes calm. Where, am I? She whispered, confused. Arjun smiled and said, safe. She said her name was Maya. She didn't reveal more. Not her surname, not her background, just Maya. But the way she looked at the world with suspicion, sadness, and a kind of distant superiority told Arjun she wasn't just a lost traveler. She had come with a driver who didn't survive the flood. For days, she remained in the village as roads cleared. Arjun continued helping her, asking for nothing. When she asked why he risked his life for a stranger, Arjun replied, in water, rich and poor drown the same. You were drowning, that's all I saw. Something inside Maya shifted. She began to walk with Arjun through the village, seeing the poverty, the spirit, the dignity of people who had nothing but shared everything. She watched children laugh barefoot, men rebuild broken huts together, and women sing as they cooked on wood fire stoves. For the first time in years, she felt human. The storm outside had passed, but the one inside her had just begun to calm. And just when she thought this story was about survival, it turned out to be something else, something much deeper. Because Maya wasn't just Maya. She was Maya Mehra, the CEO of Mehra Group, a billionaire heiress who had vanished from the media spotlight after a scandal she hadn't caused, a tragedy that had shattered her marriage, and a life that had stopped feeling real. But the boy who saved her didn't know any of that, and she wasn't sure if she wanted him to. Yet, the morning sun finally returned to the village, not as a threat, but as a gentle visitor. It painted gold over the thatched roofs and the puddled paths where children now played again. Life, though scarred, resumed with the kind of stubborn hope that poor people know better than anyone. But something was different. Maya had not only survived the flood, she had awakened to a world she had forgotten existed. Her hands, which had once signed million-dollar deals without flinching, now fumbled while helping an old woman stir porridge. Her voice, once used to command boardrooms, now whispered lullabies to a motherless child whose hut she visited every evening. But in the center of this shift stood one person, Arjun, the boy whose name she would never forget. Each morning, she watched him split firewood, laugh with others, argue over goats, and speak with a kindness that was effortless. He never asked for her story, never tried to impress her, and never once treated her like someone special. And for someone who had spent years surrounded by sycophants and sharks in suits, that simplicity was revolutionary. But Maya had a clock ticking inside her. With the roads cleared and communications slowly restored, the time was near when she'd have to return to the world she belonged to, the world of cities, power, media, and money. She hadn't told anyone who she was, not even Arjun. And yet, one morning, as they stood by the river that had almost claimed her life, she said softly, "If I wasn't who you think I am, would you treat me any differently?" Arjun gave her a puzzled smile. "I don't treat people based on who they are. I treat them based on what they do." That answer sat with her like a stone in her heart. That same evening, as Maya sat in a corner of the village square watching a makeshift school being built from bamboo and mud, she saw something she'd missed before. Arjun teaching the younger kids letters using sticks in the mud. He barely knew more than a few alphabets himself, but he passed on what little he had with a hunger to uplift. She learned from one of the elders that Arjun had dreams of becoming a teacher, not in a city, but in that very village. Lack of it had buried that dream. That night, alone in the hut she now shared with two elderly widows, Maya wept for the first time in years. Not from pain or fear, but from awe at how someone with so little could live with such richness of heart. The next morning, she was gone. No goodbyes, no farewell, just gone. The villagers assumed she'd found a way back to her world. Arjun felt her absence more than he expected to. Life returned to its quiet rhythm. Weeks passed, and then months, till one afternoon, just as the village was preparing for a small festival, the sound of engines roared across the valley. Not bikes, not bullock carts, but black SUVs, a convoy. People rushed to see. From one of the vehicles stepped a woman, radiant, powerful, and dressed in crisp white, followed by camera crews, staff, and men in black suits. Maya, but not the Maya they knew. Maya, Mera, billionaire, business icon, philanthropist. She stepped onto the dusty ground, heels sinking slightly, and folded her hands before the stunned villagers. "You saved me," she said. "Now it's my turn." That moment exploded like fireworks in the village. She called it the Arjun Project, a mission to transform the village with schools, clean water, solar power, and healthcare. Every child would go to school. Every family would have access to opportunity. A vocational center was launched. An entire ecosystem of empowerment started blooming where only survival had existed. And at the heart of it all was Arjun, confused. Hesitant, overwhelmed. Maya met him under the same tree by the river where they had once sat. "Why didn't you tell me who you were?" he asked, eyes full of quiet betrayal. She looked down. "Because I didn't know who I was anymore. You reminded me." Arjun didn't reply immediately, but his eyes softened. She offered him a scholarship, to study, to grow, to return as a qualified teacher. "The village needs a guide who understands both worlds. Someone like you?" Arjun looked at the school being built. He nodded slowly. "But with a condition. I'll go," he said, "but I'll come back." And he did. Years passed. The village became a model for sustainable rural development. Tourists came not to gawk, but to learn. Maya visited often, never as a savior, but as a partner. Arjun returned with a degree, experience, and the same humility he had left with. He became the head of the village school. But more than that, he became a symbol that heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they wear torn shirts and carry water on their heads. One evening, as the sun set and the river glowed gold again, Maya stood beside Arjun, watching children play. "Do you ever wish the flood never happened?" she asked. Arjun thought for a moment. "If it hadn't," he said, "I would never have met the woman who changed this village's fate." Maya smiled. You still think I'm the one who changed it? He turned to her. You were the spark. But you gave the matchbox to the right hands. They laughed. The flood had taken lives. But it had also broken open something sacred, a chance meeting between two worlds. Stitched together by courage, kindness, and the kind of silent love that asks for nothing in return. And somewhere in that little village nestled between green hills and dusty roads, hope had built a home, not made of bricks, but of belief.